So hey friends, welcome to this week's video. This week we're going to revisit something that was super popular amongst you guys, as well as something that me and Samika still have to this day, and that's the Moondrop space travels. These guys are only 25 bucks, but punch way higher than the price tag would indicate. The sound is super neutral and very nice and punchy, and overall they're just really reliable. They're small, they're lightweight, and they just do a lot more than you'd expect and can punch higher than you'd expect. So this is something that I wanted to talk about because we picked up a bunch of Moondrop stuff lately, and it only made sense to pick up the upgraded V2s, which come with a lot of improvements that people have been asking for. For the V1s, these ones were an issue because of the fact that they had really small battery, like anywhere from 3 to 4 hours on one charge, and it only had like limited capabilities in terms of the codecs. They improved this one by doubling or almost doubling the hours to about 7 per charge, and also put in a planar in here with LDAC codecs. So there's a lot more capabilities from the new version that we definitely wanted to check out just because we loved how well these performed. So $15 more gets you the new gen. Let's see if it's actually worth it, and let's do a little bit of a deep dive on how this is an improvement. So just like the original Moondrops, the Moondrop 2 Ultras have a nice small package here. That everything is very compact, just basically the essentials. Moondrop usually does a really good job with packaging. This isn't one of their flash and bang presentations, but perfect size for something like, let's say, a stocking stuffer or a white elephant gift. In terms of the case itself, same structure, same sort of vibe, different colorways, and same open top that you're used to. These ones will behave very similarly. They're the same sort of pocketability, and they hold the earbuds in the exact same way. They're both USB-C charging, but this time with the new Ultras, you're gonna get double the battery life. So previously it was 12 with the originals, and the Ultras now have a 12-hour increase to 24 hours inside the case. As we open this box and I fuddle through trying to get it out, what you're going to see here is all the accessories. And as I mentioned before, it's super minimalist, just the bare essentials of what you'll need. You'll see a USB-C charging, USB-A to USB-C, as well as some ear tips there for customization. So the ear tips come in 3 different flavors on top of the ones that are inside the earbuds themselves already, so you should have enough flexibility to find your proper fit. In terms of the drivers themselves, they look exactly the same sort of oval vibe, same sort of look and feel. Obviously there's a little bit change in terms of the driver with a planar instead, but in terms of the shape, very similar. So any ear tips that you pick will probably be okay if they were okay with the originals. In terms of the earbuds themselves, form factor is very, very similar, same sort of housing. Really, there's just a big difference in the fact that there's a bigger microphone grill on the outside there, but otherwise these are the same looking thing. In fact, I'm pretty sure they'll fit inside of each other's cases. But you'll obviously get much more battery here, projected 7 hours, so you're gonna hopefully be able to play these for a lot longer, but let's see in the bigger analysis that we do later on battery. Going back to the grills here, you see that the Ultras have a larger grill, which is supposed to be better for that neural processing unit and the AI-powered environmental noise cancellation. So just having a bigger speaker with more access will hopefully help cancel out sound better, as well as be better for speaking and all your phone calls as well. So pretty much identical form factor in terms of what we saw with the originals, but with some additional battery and microphones. But let's test this more properly. So now that the basics of the differences between the new version, let's actually use this and see how the performance is. And let's start off with the gym and the fit.
All right, might as well get a microphone sample while we're out here. So this is how it sounds directly to the microphone, but I'll talk to you about the workout that we just did. So it was an upper deck, and it worked out fine. Like, there was no issues with security. Feels just as light, just as secure as the other ones did. And yeah, even through like running and cardio, no big issues. I can't foresee this having issues with agility drills either, because the security was just solid throughout the entire thing. What I will say is that volume might still be an issue. So was ANC. There were times where I could still hear the music even with ANC on. I mean, hear the music from the gym with ANC on and volume like at 90%. Not like clearly, but still like beats and certain voices came through. So it does take out all the droning noises, but any clanks, any sort of high-pitched noises, any sort of sudden noises will still come through. And again, music from the gym is still loud enough to get through. So ANC might still be an issue here, as well as volume. I was really trying to bump it up as loud as I could to drown it out, but it didn't work out. But overall, not too bad. Let's see how the battery on this guy is. So worked out for about, or been out in the about for about a couple hours, and the battery's around 65%. So let's see how it behaves for the rest of the day. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that I did get a phone call in, and it seemed to work pretty well. Even when I was on the treadmill, it isolated sounds out pretty well, even with other people running pretty quickly around me. So I don't think you should have issue with sort of call quality. There might be some issues again with like clanking that will come through and might annoy your listener, but overall really good on phone calls. But let me give you some sound samples of the ANC transparency and all of that so you guys can understand how this sounds with all the different modes. All right, so about 6 hours later, these finally died. Not quite the 7 that they projected, but I have been using these for phone calls with ANC on, using it for music constantly. This is just a straight shot of 6 hours listening to these headphones, and it's 2 hours more than what they had on the classics or like the space travel ones. So an improvement here. You probably would get a little bit more out of it if you didn't turn on the ANC or didn't listen to things as loud. However, most of you probably will be using ANC and listening to it loud because you'll need to for the volume consideration. So 6 hours is what I'm getting. In terms of fast charge, I don't see any specs that say it's fast charge, but I did charge these up for around 15 minutes and I got 60%. So relatively good stats there. So, if you need to put them into the charger for 10 minutes or so, you should be able to, get a few more hours of listening in. But let's listen to this a little bit more throughout the day so I can get a better sense of the sound, and we'll come back and talk about that, as well as the app. There's a lot of stuff going on in the app that I'm going to play around with.
So the Moondrop app, or the Moondrop Link app, there's a couple different names for it, but you can pick this up on the Play Store or through their website. And despite having a iPhone app or an iPhone link to that app, it's not really available for iPhone at all. So even though they talk about supporting it, it is not supported, and I've read some forums that you really can't access this from iOS yet. So sounds like a future feature that's coming, but it's not supported right now, so kind of keep that in mind if you're an iPhone user. However, let's go into the app and show you what this one's all about. So once you click the device that you want to configure, you'll be presented with the device itself as well as your charge per earbud. You'll also be able to see the volume levels here and some high-level quick access actions for each segment. So ANC settings, transparent, noise reduction, and close. Function settings, low gain, middle gain, high gain, and tune EQ. Which will allow you to change some of the things we'll show you a little bit later, as well as an online interactive DSP, which will give you some options from the community to change around the headphones. So from the ANC settings, you'll obviously be able to control most of that through the main menu. However, diving deeper will show you the ability to take away some actions as well as resort them. I know some people didn't like the sequence of how the different actions were, so this is a nice feature for those people asking for that. Moving down to the function settings, this is where you can kind of change the behavior of your device. So LDAC is obviously going to be really good for people that are using higher quality sources. So most Androids can support LDAC. It just depends on if your music source can support LDAC and has a high quality flavor. If it does, this is going to be something that you'll want to click on. Do keep in mind that LDAC does come with performance features in terms of lag, and it's not as performative for things like gaming, etc. But that's why you have a gaming mode. Don't use LDAC, use the gaming mode that's in the headphone. Dual device connections is also going to be important if you are someone who likes to swap between various devices. For me, I use my phone and my laptop a lot, so dual connection with those two is something that I do quite often. And for your EQ, obviously you can change that from the main menu, boosting up the lows, mids, or highs. I usually stay around the mids just because most things are V-shaped, so bringing out the mids is helpful. These other options here will give you a little bit different flavors to play with as well. So reference is probably going to be your best bet. It is a little bit bass boosted. Your neutrals are pretty smooth, and this is probably as neutral as you're going to get in terms of pleasurability. So this is probably where like your baseline is for these headphones. Pop will bring in a little bit brighter tones. It'll be more vocal emphasized and bring in some of the mids to bring a little bit of sparkle to that. For pop music and giving you that lighter feel, while monitor will be very, very flat. It'll be as flat as they can make it so that you can listen to the track as it was intended. So this is for that analytical listening. Some people may not like this because it doesn't have enough like vibe or enough flavor or not enough color, but some people like that analytical option, so that is there for you to use. And obviously, if you want to get super fancy, you can use the online interactive DSP, and this will give you the ability to change around the target response based off of your preference. So Moondrop does have some options here based on some existing headphones they have, so like the Aria 2, the Cadence, some other earbuds that they have, so that you can flop it around with some official targets, or you can also import your own. By using links or QR codes if there's something online that you prefer. And then of course you can create your own by using the sliders and the frequency response to create your own target that you can reference later and keep that readily available for you. So plenty of options here. So in terms of the Ultras, I think the sound signature is super versatile and nice in terms of its overall presentation. It is brighter than the originals, and it does somewhat lack a little bit of the low end, although the low end is a lot more accurate. So the low end doesn't get wobbly and it doesn't sort of bottom out as much, but it also is not as impactful. So there's a little bit of a mixed bag here in terms of my feels, because it really depends on the song. So starting off with the good ones, Proposed by Natori. This song was super nice and punchy. I thought the way that the instruments were introduced was very, very nice, and his voice just has a ton of staying power and just flows between intimate and echoey, and I really like the transition of all the different musical elements of this song. I thought it was beautifully done, and it's really well represented in these headphones. Similarly with Gabe Flow, Room 507, completely, you know, not string, but guitar track, but those strings and those riffs that he hits just hit so hard. They're so clean and like poignant, and they just ting so well in the ear when he's running through his progressions. And I feel like this song sounded better on these headphones than a lot of other ones I have, not even just the OGs, Space Travels, but other earbuds that I've been using as well. And then for some reason, I feel like funk works really well. This is where I feel it doesn't really make sense to me because there's a lot of bass lines, but all the bass lines from this funk music I was listening to were great. I did not have any issues with them. And then when they introduced horns, there was no harshness despite the headphone being a little bit brighter than the original Space Travels. So funk, totally awesome with these headphones, surprisingly. And I think you can go through just like random playlists and still really enjoy these headphones with this genre. As we move on to things I didn't like as much, and I think this is where like I'm a little bit more familiar with some of these bass lines, where I just didn't feel the impact that I wanted to. So like for the outro for To Be Hero X, I really like this because there's a nice progression of like instruments that kind of like build up the song, kind of starts like smooth and jazzy, and then it gets really hype and EDM-y. So I like the transition from really calm to really like upbeat, and as a result there's a bass line and some beats and low end that kind of help drive that, but it's not felt as much with these headphones. So while the vocals sound beautiful, they're nicely separated, there's just some low impact that doesn't help you groove along with the song as much as you'd normally. So that's something that I was missing out of that. And it's similar with Teddy Swim's Lose Control. Lose Control starts off super mellow, and then it builds up to him belting Lose Control. So there's a small slow beat that builds up, and then towards like the few counts before the actual chorus hits, it builds up, it thumps faster, it thumps faster and thumps faster, bringing up to that climax of his belt of saying lose control and his run at the top. And you just don't feel it. There's no anticipation of that low end, and it's a little bit disappointing because it ends up just bringing really flat. So like you're not seeing the progression from verse to chorus and slow back down to the next verse. It's not grandiose in the same way that it would be for even the old Space Travel. So that's something that I was missing out of that song. And then randomly with Ed Sheeran, it was not nice for his vocals. For some reason, a lot of Ed Sheeran songs, especially Shivers here that you see, were a little bit tinny. It's a little bit annoying, and I don't know why. He has a bunch of bangers, but like I expected the vocals to shine a little bit more because they had been shining for a lot of the other songs, but for some reason Ed Sheeran came out really tinny, especially in Shivers, which I can't explain, but yeah. So there's some things in terms of listening to these where you might find songs that are your favorites and some genres that work and some that don't, but there's some experimentation that's going to definitely be needed with these. And obviously I did these all listening to like bass EQ. You could definitely EQ these to help fix with some of those low end issues that I've been noticing. So take that with a grain of salt. I'm going to give you guys some samples to bite on, and then we'll come into final recommendations afterwards. So listen here.
Rainy days don't seem so wet. Stormy nights don't stay. From the moment that we met, you were worth the wait. Oh, this could be the best thing that I'll ever know.
So, recommendations. In terms of the Ultras, there's a lot of good things that Moondrop did to make these a little bit more palatable than their original versions, and that's like the battery life, the application being able to boost things up and change the sound around to what you'd like, the introduction of LDAC and multi-connect, like those sort of things really are things that people would appreciate as a power user. Being able to use this every day is just so much more easy to use in that context. However, from a sound perspective, while it is cleaner and it is a little bit more nuanced in terms of the things that are nice, I still find that this is hard to recommend because I feel like a lot of people want that bass. And for me, I've listened to a lot of headphones and I'm not super bass centric, but even for me, I was missing some impact on certain songs. And as you heard from my analysis, like it just wasn't really resonating with me on certain tracks. And I think because of that, it doesn't make it versatile enough for me to just like, you know, tell someone to pick these up because they may not like them. Like, especially for what price range it is at $40, like I don't think people are gonna be EQing all that much at that price range, and I don't think that people are wanting to tweak it as much. They're not going to be tinkerers at that price range, if that makes sense. Like at $40, you want to be able to pick it up, listen to it, and maybe pick some EQs that are preset here and there, but for the most part, you just want to stick them in your ears and listen to them. And I think it would be hard for me to be like, just anyone pick these up and I can guarantee you'd like your entire playlist like I would be with the Space Travel Originals. So with this being more expensive at almost double the price of the OGs, it's kind of hard for me to recommend out the gate. If you want to experiment with it, I think they're still definitely, you know, good to pick up because of the extended battery and the LDAC. However, there might be some other options for you out there if you're starting to spend that much money, and like one of those is going to be potentially the ultrasonic. As I mentioned, Drop really likes this form factor with this open design for the earbuds, and yeah, they have other options. So This one's a little bit more expensive, but I'm hoping that they sound a little bit better and have a little bit more low end, because I think there's a dual driver in here. Is there a dual driver in here? We'll talk about that in the full review. Yeah, hybrid driver. So there's a dual driver in here. While this one's a planar, this might have a little bit more impact with a dedicated driver, so I'm really excited to try these next. And I also have the Golden Ages, which is another planar, but you know, a little bit better received and definitely a little bit more expensive than the Ultras. So we have some options here in front of us. Hopefully we can find one that we all like. But if you like what you saw, please consider liking, subscribing, doing all things you normally do on a video that you like and love. And as always, I appreciate you. Peace. See you very soon. We got so much Moondrop stuff to look at.